This is Shai Alexander, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Jay Will, and I'm down to dunk.
They have. Here we go.
I'm Isaiah Hartenstein, and I'm down to dunk.
I hope savior of basketball is one.
Well, the Dortcher chamber has been going pretty well.
I'm Aaron Wiggins, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Chet Holmgren, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Mark Daigneault, and I'm down to dunk.
He just does a big smile and
I feel blessed by God to be here down to dunk, be here with you.
I'm Alex Caruso, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm AJ Mitchell, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Isaiah Joe, and I'm down to dunk.
Oh, jeez. Are you going to sing it good enough for me to guess it, or?
Panhandle. Jeez. I'm tweaking.
Name 2 famous Oklahomans.
Myself and Jalen Williams.
Is that a crazy answer?
All my friends call me Bob.
Where's Rachel?
Unique story. You lived a whole life.
Plain.
This is Kason Wallace, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
True-blood Oklahoma.
That's right.
Pretty exciting, if you ask me.
This is J-Dub, world champion J-Dub, and I'm down to dunk. And eat burgers.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me today, special guest, my good friend Sam Amick, here to talk about his interview with Mark Daigneault. He wrote a piece about Shai that I thought was really good on The Athletic. Sam, welcome to the show.
Mr. Schlecht, great to be with you. Coming at you from rainy, windy Northern California. Pardon the casual winter attire for the video audience. We're going scrubs today. We got the hot coffee on the west side. It's still morning, so glad to be with you. Good to see your smiling face, brother.
It's great to see you too. You did an interview with Mark, and I'm constantly man, if people knew Mark more than they already do, which is not much. I don't think people really know Mark all that well.
Right.
The more you know this guy, the more you like him. And I wondered just what were your impressions of Mark the person, and then we can kind of dive into the interview a little bit too.
Yeah, I enjoy Mark quite a bit. Certainly don't know him like you do, but got to know him better the past couple of years. I remember at NBA Cup in Vegas last year, catching him for 10, 12 minutes for a really nice conversation at that point where I enjoyed him. And then the playoff run, and this happens a lot when, you end up hitting the road for almost 2 months covering the postseason is, you just get a lot more time with these different people around the NBA. So that experience with Mark and the championship run last year was fun. As a quick side story, I can't believe I'm forgetting. I'm going to pull up the name here. During the run, I got to know his high school coach a little bit because I would run into him in the gym.
You telling me this, yeah.
Steve Dubinsky, just a wonderful guy. And I only bring that up because it was while I was getting to spend a little more time around Mark, you also had this periphery stuff where it was you talk about a relatable, normal, cool type of experience to have is here's this dude's high school coach who is still part of his circle, bringing I think he's an athletic director for an entire school district, bringing his entire life to a screeching halt to jump on board, the Daigneault train during this exciting time and travel with the team and be around Mark and his family. And he would tell these, and they were just, we literally kept running into each other in the hotel gym. And he'd tell these stories that made me like Mark even more. How they won game 6 of the conference finals last night. Well, Mark got home and his wife told him to take the garbage out. You know what I mean? And just how normal of a person he is, how he doesn't put on any airs. Very humble, appreciative guy. Even our chat the other day, so OKC comes through Sacramento, and part of my normal routine is certainly catching all the visiting teams when they're in my town. And we said hello, we met after the game, and he simply said, "How was your summer?" And little did he know that it was a loaded question because, and I'm getting in the weeds here, but this speaks to just Mark being normal again.
Yeah.
Is as you know, Andrew, the Amick family had a hell of a summer. I had a son who is on a wrestling team, and he had an injury that was kind of a big deal, and so I'm the fact that I'm choosing and being comfortable enough with Mark to be oh, you know what, I'm going to actually tell you how my
Mhm.
summer was. We talked about that for a minute, and all of a sudden, Matt Tumbleson from Thunder PR kind of came around the corner and was shooting us a look like, "Oh, is the interview done?" And Mark was like, "No, we got far afield here." But I'm going to go back to that word normal. Like there's a normalcy with Mark. It is refreshing in a space where some of the people you cover certainly have heads that can't fit through doors. Mark's not one of those guys, and then you combine that with the fact that he continues to show that he's incredibly good at what he does, and the culture they have is pretty special, and the team they have is pretty special. So, yeah, it was a nice conversation.
Yeah, go check it out on The Athletic. The part that really just kind of got me giggling is when you ask him about Ted Lasso, if he's got like any Ted Lasso in him. I was curious, like what like made that hit your brain, and then like what was his like response in person? Like what was that like?
Well, I mean, I never try to pretend that I am in terms of covering the game. You know, you are very tactical with the way you discuss the game. I'll bring up Fred Katz from our staff, who,
Yeah,
Fred just put out a story on the Cavs and how, like, basically saying you might not have noticed, but they are running significantly differently this season. I tend to gravitate more often than not to the human side of the game, and within that is leadership and culture and spirit of the group. So, like, the Ted Lasso thing was just kind of, I guess, a vehicle or kind of a tool that I was attempting to use to try to understand Mark's approach to not only the leadership side, but specifically the psyche of defending a title, which is kind of what we had first discussed. What was hilarious about it is when I bring up the Ted Lasso thing, he says, "I've watched some of the series, but not the whole thing." You can tell he's confused, like, why are we going down this Ted Lasso road? Um, and then when he wasn't totally feeling it, and you saw in the interview, he literally said, "I'm not going to let you make that connection." I I had to kind of like cop to the fact that 50% of my brain really knew where we were going. The other 50%, I think subconsciously just thinks he looks like Ted Lasso. And it was like, let's just kind of blend those two things together.
yeah,
Yeah, so I didn't knock it out of the park, but it was like a dribbling single that did lead to, it did lead to some insight. I mean, he did talk a little bit about the way he handles their group, which this every day. We should get into this. Like, it's pretty unique how he manages these people, and I thought that part of the conversation was interesting.
yeah. And when you think about managing people, you think like he's got his hand on like everything that's going on in the organization. Like he's like making sure that everybody's good in every corner. The thing that he's best at, and he talked about this in the interview, is just like letting the guys be, and like knowing that like they're putting the work in, or like they know how to like work these relationships. Like he knows like the emotional intelligence of knowing like when to help with something and when to not is a huge deal. That I know that not every NBA coach really understands that dynamic.
No question. Well,
and
you have
so-
to get over yourself first of all. Like that's you it's kind of the way that manifests on the court is it's the difference. And I'm not even saying one way is better than the other, but it's the difference between the coach who calls every play himself and the coach who
Mhm.
lets his point guard run the game. It's that to some extent in the locker room.
Yeah.
Um, it's also easier to do when times are good. When you're going in the wrong direction, then you got to put your finger on things. But
Mhm.
even not to get all TED talk, if that makes sense, but like from even beyond basketball, a business standpoint, the way he talks about how he manages it sounds very much like that, like it's creating a work environment that the people want to come to. You want them to be happy
Yeah.
to be there. You want them to be excited, especially because one thing I think the fans sometimes don't like slow down and really truly process about the NBA players' experience is that, okay, you'll hear fans say, they work 2 hours a day. They don't. I mean, they have plenty of free time, but it's not only about training as much as they do, it's about the schedule. It's about 82 games, and being on the road for half of that time. And so, you'll hear, I mean, they see each other more than they see their families.
Mhm.
And that means the guy at the top, if he handles it like Mark does, you're going to have happier employees, so to speak, and probably a better product.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was particularly interesting. What else stuck out about Mark, or at least the way like he handles the team to you?
I mean, the Shade relationship, which
Yeah.
the thing I did enjoy about our talk is that I knew he didn't have a lot of time, and I very much honed in on really just these two questions. What is your approach to title defense from a psyche standpoint? In which case, and I'll get to the Shea thing in a second, but on the front end of that is him sharing the fact that that they, and I didn't know this, I'm sure you probably did, they pushed back all of their work in the off season about 6 weeks after the championship, and their approach and their strategy was to like almost, it's not a matter of like extending the party. We all know they didn't really party much. They don't even know how to open champagne and drink beer and all that, but like extending the off season so they can kind of sit in their accomplishment while training, but have that moment, and that almost empowered the organization to then, with its messaging, say, okay, that chapter is over. That thing
Mhm.
is done. We're not taking it away from you. Nobody can ever take it away from you, but it doesn't matter anymore. And now it's a matter of turning towards the next goal, which is to win it again. So then you get to the Shea stuff because, arguably more than any other team in the league. If you're talking about like influence on the group, it's Shea with OKC, it's Joker with the Nuggets, it's Giannis
Yeah.
with the Bucks. I don't even think Luka is on that level right now in terms of just the butterfly effect of what one player does, because
Mhm.
it's not just basketball, it's culture, and it's all the inside stuff. His his approach with Shea is, it's not a matter of being hands off. He just knows what he has. He knows how locked in Shea is, and
Yeah.
how he sets an example for the group that makes it easy on Mark and his staff, to have them be in line. And my favorite part was at the very, very end where there's a moment of honesty, and Mark says, "I just don't want to f it up."
Mhm.
Like that's, if you
Yeah.
like on its at face value, you go, "Oh, you're taking too much credit away from yourself." Like, no, that is a powerful form of leadership, is getting over yourself, and that's probably my favorite part of Mark.
Yeah. I mean, because if you think about it, he has maybe the weirdest resume of any coach ever. Like when you think about his NBA resume, coach of the year, he's won a title with like this young team. He's developed like so many different prospects, guys that are on the Thunder, some guys that are not on the Thunder. Like I think he can feel good about his development with Josh Giddey, even, who's playing well
Sure.
for the Bulls. But he's also just like the most unlikely NBA coach maybe ever. He's probably in the top 5 lists of like most unlikely NBA coaches ever, just based on like what he was doing before he was coaching the Blue, which was like he was going to be a college professor. And whenever he was one of Billy Donovan's assistants at Florida, go back and look and see if you can find Mark Daigneault on the bench during those games, because you can't. He wasn't on the bench. Like he
I
wasn't.
didn't know that.
He wasn't like a
Was
top.
he?
He wasn't a top
Yeah.
assistant for Billy.
Yeah.
Like when you think about these guys that get promoted and get these jobs, you think, oh, it's probably like some top assistant at Florida. Like he wasn't.
Yeah.
And like he had no expectation that he was going to be a coach for the Thunder or the Blue or anything like that. It was just, some of it is like Presti's brilliance, really, like to like think so outside of the box that it's like, hey, I really like this guy. I like the way he thinks. I like the way he thinks about the game. No one knew if he could coach. Like there's no way you could have known if he could coach because he'd never coached anything before. So it's just really, he's just a fascinating figure in so many ways.
He is, and I was going to actually throw it back to you this way, Andrew. Like, tell me if I'm connecting dots that don't exist. Like what I find so interesting about Mark's path that I don't think I've seen anything close to it anywhere else is that, the Billy Donovan decision for him and the Thunder to part ways, you remember the time, like sometimes an organization cans a coach and they try to dress it up as this was mutual. You know what I mean? this was one of the only times where you're like, oh, this is actually mutual.
Yeah.
The relationship was in a good place. And that's what's so unique is like, all right, we've decided that we think that it's best for both sides to bring this era to an end, but we still think so highly of the guy who's not going to be the head coach anymore that we're going to turn to somebody who came up underneath him. And so you almost like organizationally, the Thunder, the Spurs, teams, organizations like that have mastered the art of continuity
Yeah.
and of progress and things. And I think that is important nuance is that, at a time when everybody else, myself included, is just looking at OKC and saying, gosh, where are they going? Um, they are continuing some of that momentum organizationally, philosophically, and you're not making a hard pivot from Billy Donovan to Mark Daigneault. In fact, you're just it's a new version of a similar thing, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like that subplot, I think was lost on most of us at the time, and now seems to become more clear, and it's pretty obvious that it was how intentional it was. Um, and I think it's obviously yielded results. They've got a great thing, and this the players absolutely rock with Mark
Yeah.
in a crazy kind of way. It's like, yeah, this is our favorite, middle-aged dad coach. Like it's like, and last thought there too is like, and I said this in the article, you can't really find, there's no one else in the league right now as a head coach who has this powerful combination of youth and experience.
Yeah.
Like this cross section of Mark being tied for the third longest tenured NBA coach behind Eric Spoelstra and Steve Kerr, but then I think it was fourth youngest,
Yep.
at the same time. I mean, that's the definition of a long runway, and that's obviously what the Thunder are perfecting right now across the board.
And it's a lot of when people think about the G League, the Thunder think about the G League so differently than most teams. One, I think it's very intentional that the G League is they play here. They play the same building the Thunder play in. Their practice facility is just a few miles from the Thunder practice facility, but they use coaching, all the time for the G League. Like I think that they use that just as much as they do players. Like that's where Mark came from, and they developed him as a coach.
Right.
And you think about some of the guys that were like reported to be like in the running for the Thunder job when Mark got it. Like none of those guys had like real head coaching experience, but Mark with the Blue. Like a lot of these guys were just assistants.
Remind me, because my memory is failing me. Who else was in the running back then?
I'm trying to. I say that now. I'm gonna have to look.
All right,
back.
sorry, I put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. But I just remember it being like a lot of top assistants that were in the running. That was in the running for the job.
Right.
But Mark was like the only guy who'd actually coached and like knew like, hey, if you're in this situation, here's how I'd handle it. Here's how I've developed players personally from the head coaching perspective. And so,
right,
I do think that the Blue, they have a really unique thing going on there, and they've developed a ton of players, obviously, as well. But I think that they use that to develop coaches.
Right.
I don't want to keep you for too much longer, but I just wanted to also talk about your piece on Shai and just your thoughts on him in general, and then maybe some thoughts on the team before we get out of here. I'm posting these in the chat too. So if you're listening live, I'm posting both the link to both his articles here in the chat. Very much worth your time.
So the Shai one was a funny experience because, I'm trying to figure out, all right, is there something I can get into with the Thunder story wise, coverage wise and this, like I'm not covering the game that night. I'm trying to write something that has a little more shelf life and is a bigger picture look at each of these different team situations. And so it's a Friday night in Sacramento. I have no intention of writing that evening. I plan on filling the notebook and figuring out what I'm going to do for the following week. And I made, it ended up working out well, but I made a rookie mistake for somebody who's covered the league for a long time, which is I generally don't ask the questions that are on my mind in the press conference, because the problem with that, and now I'm getting into the weeds media wise, but the problem with that is that you then are sharing, if anybody says anything interesting, you are then sharing that with the world, and in
Yep.
the social media world, it's going to get videotaped
Yep.
immediately. And so as a writer, there's no joy in that. You want to be able to write things that are fresh to the audience that they
Yep.
haven't seen before.
Mhm.
And so I had kind of just decided I'm not going to try to ask the Thunder if I can talk to Shai on the, one-on-one, or if I can even bother him. I just went into Shai's press conference. Now, to paint the picture of the Golden One Center in Sacramento, and what I actually like about, they have this visiting team press conference room that is a glorified broom closet. It is very, very small. You're talking max like 10 or 12 media members can fit in there. Everybody's very tight. And sometimes I kind of love it, because while I don't like doing the press conference thing, because I'm selfish and I'd rather just do one-on-one stuff,
Yeah.
it's more conversational than most press conference rooms. You feel like I remember last season, Victor Wembanyama got in there, and obviously he's such a massive physical presence, and he sat down, and you could tell the second he sat down that he was kind of digging it. Like, all right, it's just me and a few of my media friends, and he got real insightful and reflective. And so there's been some pretty good press conferences in this room.
Yeah.
And when Shai sat down, it was a little similar, where seemed chill. And so I ended up just asking him about, his approach to title defense, and how much time, if any, during the summer he had spent, strategizing and thinking deeply about how he wanted to approach, this next season, in terms of a leader and trying to lift up the whole group. And that the rookie mistake was, you get a really good answer in a press conference late on a Friday night, and like it or not, that now means you're going to stay up till 2 a.m. writing a story.
Right.
So it was great, because Logan Murdoch from The Ringer was there. And as we walked out of the room, he immediately was just like, oh, "Good job, Rook! Like, way to go! Like, you're going to be up late, give me a hard time." But like Shai, if people didn't see the article, that's when he says, "To be honest with you, I didn't like how we won the title
Yeah.
last year."
Great quote. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I love the candor, and I know the headlines might feel a little, dramatic, but like, it's also the headline of that story talks about how this is why the rest of the NBA should be, fear or afraid.
Yep.
And I agree. It's like, oh boy, like
Mhm.
it's not about we won the chip. It's about, nah, I want to win the chip and feel good about winning the chip. That's a hell of a way to approach it. And he's also right. Like,
Yeah.
this. You watch them all regular season. Like, you got to give him credit for winning the title. But like Andrew, the idea that like those Nuggets, with everything they were going through, were able to push them to 7 games,
Mhm.
and how the Thunder played with fire in that series. And then, I mean, my gosh, they almost lost the title to a Pacers team without Tyrese Halliburton,
Yep.
So kudos to Shai, because A, he's right, and B, that is a very intelligent way to attack this season.
Yeah. And they're doing it. I mean, they had this back-to-back against the Warriors and Lakers. I had it circled when I'm looking at the schedule. It's like, that's one that should be fun. And
Sure.
they'll probably go 1-1, and, we should get a lot of good stuff out of it. Like, they just stomp both teams. And the Thunder had like less healthy players than both those teams did. Now, both those teams weren't whole. Obviously the Lakers didn't have LeBron. Al Horford didn't play for the Warriors, but the Thunder have a longer list of guys that are out.
What a cliff! If no disrespect to Al, what a cliff you just went off. No LeBron, no Al. And I was gonna say, I was gonna hone in on the Warriors game. Like, first of all, I kind of wish I would have joined you for those two. Like, that would have been a good little stretch.
Yeah.
The Warriors one, what struck me about it was, and this is just the writer in me, is like, man, you talk about symbolism.
Yeah.
Like
Totally.
the Warriors are still trying to be the Warriors.
Mhm.
And when they started 4-1, they felt like they were getting a little closer to being in the conversation with the Thunder. And not only did they stomp them, and the fact that Steph played is a massive, anti-asterisk, if you will, but they effed up their locker room. You know what I mean? Like, you had Draymond Green after the game, like, talking about the issues they have internally. That's how good they are. They make you question yourself and look inside, and even if you don't like what you're seeing. I thought that Warriors game was a pretty loud statement.
Yeah, I thought so too. Sam, I won't keep you any longer, but we really appreciate you. Go read both these pieces from Sam at The Athletic. They're great. They're posted here in the chat. I'll also, if you're listening on the podcast, I'll put them in the show notes as well. Well worth your time. Really, anything Sam writes is well worth your time. Come on. But
Thank you, sir.
Particular to Thunder fans are really good. Sam, anything else you want to promote before we get out of here?
No, it was nice to write about hoops a little bit, not gambling or salary cap
right
circumvention or Nico Harrison. I mean, that's hoops, but we've had a lot of drama this season, and I guess my final thought is, like, it's crazy, and one of the most dramatic off-court seasons in NBA history. It's like, here's the reigning champions just quietly bludgeoning the rest of the league so far. So those Thunder are in a pretty good spot for sure.
Yeah. We'll talk more about the Lakers game and probably more about the Warriors game tomorrow morning on the show. We'll also answer questions. So if you haven't got your questions in, go to the Down to Dunk Twitter page, and we have our little prompt there. So if you have questions, put those in there, and we'll talk to you guys again on Friday.
I'm down to dunk. I'm down to dunk.